You're in the shower or driving or about to fall asleep, and suddenly you're having a full argument with someone who isn't there. You're saying exactly the right things, they're saying the wrong ones, and the whole conversation is escalating with a level of detail that feels almost real. Except it isn't, it never happened, it might never happen. And yet your heart is beating a little faster, your jaw is slightly tighter, and some part of you is genuinely upset about an event that existed only in your own mind. The human brain is the most sophisticated prediction machine that has ever existed. That is not a metaphor. It is literally how neuroscientists now understand the way your mind operates. Rather than simply responding to what is happening around you, your brain is constantly running simulations of what might happen next. It is building internal models of reality, testing them, and updating them based on new information. This process has a name in psychology: mental simulation. The reason your brain does this is not because something has gone wrong with your wiring. It is because this capacity is precisely what allowed human beings to survive. An ancestor who could mentally rehearse an encounter before it happened, who could imagine the predator before seeing it, had a significant advantage over one who could not. The scenario-building mind is not a glitch in the system. It is one of the most ancient and sophisticated features your brain possesses. That reframe changes how we should think about what it means when you do it. Here is the part that most people find genuinely surprising. When you run one of these imagined scenarios, when you picture the confrontation, the rejection, the moment everything goes wrong, your brain does not process it as fiction. Research in neuroscience has shown that vividly imagining an emotional event activates many of the same neural regions as actually experiencing it. Your amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection, cannot easily distinguish between something that is happening and something you are only vividly imagining. So your stress hormones rise, your nervous system responds, your body prepares for a threat that has never arrived. This is why you can feel genuinely anxious, angry, or heartbroken over a conversation that never took place. It is not an overreaction. It is your biology responding faithfully to the information your imagination provided. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. It just happens to be working from a script you wrote yourself, in a scene that only you could see. Not everyone's brain runs these simulations at the same intensity, and psychology has a clear explanation for why. People with higher levels of anxiety tend to engage more frequently in what researchers call anticipatory processing, mentally rehearsing future events, particularly those involving social situations or potential conflict. The mind is not wandering randomly. It is scanning for threats before they materialize, trying to close the gap between an uncertain future and a sense of psychological safety. There is also a connection between this tendency and what psychologists call intolerance of uncertainty, a deep discomfort with outcomes that cannot yet be known. People who find ambiguity difficult to sit with tend to simulate more, not because they are excessive in some negative sense, but because their nervous system is working harder to generate the predictability their inner world needs. Understanding this moves the experience out of the category of personality flaw and firmly into the category of neurological adaptation. It is not who you are, it is how your mind has learned to manage a world it cannot fully predict. It would be dishonest to discuss this without acknowledging what living inside these simulations can cost you. When the brain rehearses negative scenarios on a loop, it keeps the nervous system in a low-grade state of alert. Researchers call this perseverative cognition, the tendency for threat-related thoughts to repeat and persist even after the original trigger has passed. Over time, this sustained activation has real consequences. Sleep becomes lighter. Concentration becomes harder to hold. There is a tiredness that arrives without a clear cause because the cause lives entirely inside your head. There is also a social cost that rarely gets named. When you have already played out how a conversation will go, you sometimes stop listening to how it is actually going. The simulation quietly replaces the present moment. The real person in front of you, unpredictable, complicated, alive, becomes harder to fully reach. This is not a character flaw. It is the shadow side of a mind that cares deeply about outcomes and about the people involved in them. Here is the shift that changes everything. The same neural architecture that generates exhausting rehearsal loops is also the foundation of some of the most remarkable human capacities we have. Empathy, the real, felt ability to understand what another person is experiencing, depends on exactly this kind of mental simulation. You model the inner world of someone else using the same machinery you use to rehearse imagined conversations. Psychologist Alison Gopnik described this cognitive style as the brain functioning like a lantern rather than a spotlight, wide open, generating possibilities, imagining alternatives. Writers, architects, therapists, and caregivers disproportionately share this pattern. The same mind that replays arguments in the shower is also the mind that can write a character who feels achingly real or sense what someone needs before they say a word. These are not separate gifts and separate curses. They are the same capacity expressing itself differently in one context as exhaustion and in another as extraordinary human depth. Long before psychology had language for this, human cultures were grappling with the mind's habit of living outside the present. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome built a framework around it. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the mind constructing suffering from events that had not occurred, and rather than dismissing this as weakness, he treated it as something worth understanding with curiosity. Buddhist philosophy describes the same pattern, the mind generating versions of reality that do not exist, not as a flaw, but as the fundamental nature of the untrained mind. Virtually every contemplative tradition in human history has noticed the same thing, that the mind is a story-generating machine, and that most of its stories are set in futures and pasts that have no presence in the current moment. There is something profound in the fact that cultures separated by centuries and continents arrived at exactly the same observation. You are not an anomaly. You are not doing something strange. You are participating in something deeply, quietly, anciently human. So the next time you find yourself mid-argument with someone who isn't in the room, you don't have to judge yourself for it. Your brain is doing what brains like yours have always done, reaching into an uncertain future, caring enough about people and outcomes to prepare for them even in their absence. That is not dysfunction, that is depth. Somewhere out there, a great many people are sitting in their own showers having the exact same imaginary conversation. You are in very good company. If this helped you see your mind a little differently, MindStill is here every week exploring exactly that.